Hello, Dr. John McDougall. So glad to have you. Thank you for your patience today. I um I have to say this guy's really important to me personally because, well, let's see. He saved my life. Sorry, but he saved my life. I would have been dead 34 years ago had I not met this man. So, with that, I want you to know that he's a a board certified internist, and he's been helping people for 45 years, people like me, get well and survive. And he has a wonderful 12-day program, which you really want to sign up if you really want help. And also, he has 13 best-selling books. One of my favorites is The Starch Solution. I use it all the time. And he has really been one of the biggest influences out there in the plant-based kingdom to help people, one of the top doctors in the world. And with that, I would like him to start his presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. John McDougall.
I'm honored to have a chance to speak with three of the greats as far as the environment and trying to save our planet. So thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome.
I'm a medical doctor, and that's where my main interest is. As a matter of fact, when I first started out, say 46 years ago, my interest only was saving my patients. After all, I'm a medical doctor. And it just took, well, I would say at least a decade, but probably more than one decade, for me to mature and understand that there are other issues involved that are equally important. In fact, animal cruelty, animal welfare. It took me a while to understand how important that was. And then my understanding of the importance of the climate really hit home 18 years ago when my first grandson was born. And I've been pretty much focused on that. In fact, I rarely give a presentation, except for a few select audiences like Chef AJ. I rarely give a presentation that isn't dedicated to what I'm going to talk to you about today, which is diet and climate, because that's really what people need to hear, and it's unfortunately something that people are really turning a deaf ear to. It's unfortunate, but if you listen to the scientists, which I do, we're in big trouble. In fact, we're past the turning point in most efforts that we're going to make. And when I get into my presentation, I'll explain to you why I feel that way. And I've got some really hopeful news for you at the end of my presentation. I think there is a way, and it's not being covered in my presentation. It's not being covered, I don't think, in any other presentations that are being offered. But I'm going to show you a way that I think we can really save the planet Earth, our home. But you'll have to wait till the end of the presentation for me to offer that. I'm a family man. In fact, I think that's the most important thing for you to understand about me. I've got 3 wonderful children, very successful. And I've got 7 grandkids. And I love the practice of medicine. Because my patients get well, I often describe myself as the luckiest doctor in the world, because rather than just give people excuses and manage, they talk about managing patients these days. I have a chance to get people to actually cure themselves, because I deal with the cause of the problem. So yeah, I can't tell you how wonderful it feels to be that kind of a physician that has the chance to help other people. I hope that someday that my message, as well as the message of the 3 other speakers here, the effort that you and Ronnie are trying to get out is recognized, and it becomes a huge topic worldwide. And they do need us. They need us terribly. So let me get on with my presentation. Okay, so again, thank you for including me in this presentation. I certainly hope the word gets out, and I know you're going to make as much effort as you possibly can to get the word out. The first time I gave this presentation was in October of 2019. I was given the great honor of a Lifestyle Achievement Award, and only 4 had been given by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And I really didn't want to travel to Orlando, Florida, but I said I would if you'd give me 8 minutes at the end of your kindness and giving me this honor of being one of the only 4 people that ever gotten the Lifetime Achievement Award for the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. And they agreed to 8 minutes. I talked to them for 22 minutes. And I got 2 standing ovations. But unfortunately, the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, even though they're an organization that's focused on, well, I would say, turning the world into a vegan diet, they may not all realize it. They're a group of health professionals, medical doctors, that they have more focus on the issues of food and health than any organization I can think of. But, it wasn't their primary objective was to save the planet. But I believed now, as I did back then in October of 2019, that they're the most sensible group to take on this burden of sharing the importance of diet to the rest of the world. And as I mentioned, they're moving along just way, way too slow. Technology is not going to save us. I made this slide. I told you technology is not going to save us. And it's still true, even though at the end of the presentation, I'm going to show you technology will save us. But it's simple technology. It's low-tech technology. We're always looking for Star Wars medicine. We're looking to save the world with, after all, we invented the atomic bomb. We could destroy the whole planet. So we're always looking for science and technology to come in and save us. And so it has been. Recently with COVID-19, we've been looking to vaccinations, which, have been somewhat of a failure, and looking to treatment, which is pretty much a failure in terms of COVID-19. Whereas we have low-tech opportunities such as public health measures like isolation and social distancing and a starch-based diet, as I'll explain to you. When it comes to chronic diseases, which I've dedicated the last, half a century to, I've been in this business for over 50 years, just doing diet and lifestyle medicine for 46 years. And almost without exception, the medical business is dedicated to trying to help people with Star Wars medicine, the latest drug, the latest surgery, et cetera. And it's been an utter failure. As I mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, I don't manage disease like my colleagues do. I have an opportunity to cure illness by a very simple message. So again, Star Wars medicine has let us down when it comes to treating chronic common diseases like diabetes and heart disease, kidney disease, and obesity, et cetera. And so it is with climate change. We're looking to carbon capture, which is one of the biggest jokes on the citizens of our planet that think that we're going to take it and invent a machine that's somehow going to take the carbon out of the atmosphere. It's just so silly. It's really a bad joke, to tell you the truth, because people look to that kind of technology to save themselves. And I think it's probably as likely that carbon capture and any other technology out there, except the one I'm going to show you at the end of the presentation, it's as likely that these will succeed as it is likely that aliens from outer space will come to planet Earth and somehow fix our problems. So we have to look at low-tech solutions, which is what I'm all about, is low-tech solutions. I'm going to put all these 3 things together: chronic disease, climate change, and infectious diseases, COVID, which is what we're all dealing with now. And that the common denominator of all 3 of these problems is a diet. Diet causes it. A diet will go a long ways in helping solve the problems, not just with chronic disease or the infection problems or the chronic diseases that I've been treating for many years, but it'll aid greatly in terms of financial problems that we have in the world. And what I'm going to share with you is a message that is conforming to people's religious beliefs. And it deals with animal suffering and loss of habitat and human suffering. And of course, what people care about probably most, at least most people do, is their personal appearance. So let's take the first of these, which is chronic disease, diet and chronic disease. People are being poisoned. And that's the way I try and share my health message these days is you're being poisoned by the rich Western diet. And people understand other lifestyle issues and poisoning without even me going through an explanation. If I tell you you're being poisoned by tobacco from cigarette smoking, you understand that. You also understand what to do. You just breathe clean air. You stop smoking. And if you're being poisoned by alcohol, you're an alcoholic, what's the solution? Very simple, isn't it? Just one thing you have to do. Well, people are being poisoned. They're suffering from food poisoning. And I've tried to make it as simple as possible for people to understand and to have as few of things that they have to change as possible to keep their mind on. With cigarette smoking, it's tobacco, nicotine. With alcoholics, drunks, it's the alcohol. So I try to make it really simple when it comes to food poisoning. And what I try and explain to people is food poisons are animal foods, anything from an animal, whether it be frog's legs or pig's ears or chicken's wings or pig's butts, anything from an animal, including their secretions, which are dairy products. And the other food poison that a lot of people, even people who are interested in a vegan, vegetarian diet, are not aware of is that free oil is a serious toxin. It's a poison. It can be medicinal, but, in the quantities that people are taking it, it's a poison. These free oils, like olive oil, corn oil, safflower oil, flaxseed oil, they cause obesity, promote cancer, they promote bleeding, they promote heart disease, they suppress the immune system. They have all kinds of horrible effects that most people don't understand. Now, I'm not talking about the oil that's in, say, oranges or potatoes or rice. Those oils, when they're mixed up in the plant, are perfectly safe. It's only when you extract these oils and you leave everything else behind, you leave the vitamins and minerals and fibers and phytates behind, and you just have a bottle of oil, that becomes an out-of-control situation that is poisoning you. And not so much poisoning the planet, whereas animal foods, animal production is poisoning the planet. Common problems that are caused by food poisoning are obesity and complications of obesity, such as diabetes. Essentially, all cases of type 2 diabetes are caused by the rich Western diet and the resulting obesity, heart disease, cancers, etc. Another disease of food poisoning is diabetes, both type 1 and type 2. But in my presentation, or if you hear me in the future, if I talk about diabetes, most of the time I'm talking about type 2 diabetes, not type 1. Type 2 diabetes is 100% curable with a change in diet. Heart disease, and we're not just talking about disease of the arteries to the heart, we're talking about disease of the arteries to the brain, strokes, to the arteries to the legs, gangrene, to the arteries to the kidneys, kidney failure. We're talking about 60,000 miles of blood vessels that are distributed throughout the body. The rich Western diet poisons these parts of the body. We're talking about various kinds of arthritis like rheumatoid, psoriatic, lupus, nonspecific arthritis. They result from food poisoning, and again, are easily curable when you stop the poisoning, just like when you stop the tobacco. The cough goes away. The disease pretty much stops, or at least it slows down. Same thing with the alcohol. When people stop the alcohol, they stop falling down. So all you have to do is identify the cause of these particular problems, stop them, and the natural healing properties of the body catch up. Various kinds of cancer, and I've only listed a few: colon, breast, prostate, uterus, but pretty much all cancers have a dietary basis, at least in part. GERD, it shouldn't be hard to figure out that what you put in your stomach causes it to feel good or feel poorly, it causes it to be sick or healthy. So you have indigestion, esophagitis, ulcers, gallbladder disease. And this is an easy one to understand, and that is that chronic constipation is caused by food poisoning. And this leads to a whole bunch of problems you never related to constipation, such as diverticular disease, hemorrhoids, hiatal hernias, varicose veins, etc. But that's a whole nother lecture. The solution is a starch-based diet. A starch-based diet with the addition of fruits and vegetables. It's not a vegan diet. I mean, for the planet, a vegan diet would be pretty good. But for human health, it's got to go further than that, because a vegan diet could be vegetables swimming in oil. It's not a whole food plant-based diet like you often hear about, because whole food plant parts, you could make up a diet of kale and lettuce and cabbage and Brussels sprouts, and you'd starve to death. The kind of diet I teach is a starch-based diet. It's centered around corn, beans, and rice and potatoes and sweet potatoes and barley and wheat, breads and pastas. Starches, these have been the traditional diets of people, well, basically all people, with few exceptions, that have walked planet Earth have lived on starch-based diets. You should be able to recall what I'm talking about, from the lessons you've learned. You probably learned at one time that the Aztecs and Mayans were known as the people of the corn. They survived 1,300 years on a diet of corn. If you go a little further to America, to the Andes, you're talking about people who live on potatoes. The breadbasket of the world, which we pay a lot of attention to these days because it's focused on countries like Egypt, Iran, Iraq, Ukraine. That's the breadbasket of the world. What do you think we're talking about when we say breadbasket of the world? You go a little further east, I think everybody listening, when I mention the diet of people who live in China or Vietnam or Thailand or Japan, what do you think about? These are rice eaters. So the proper diet, and the diet I'm trying to communicate to you, if you want to save the planet, you want to save yourself, is a diet where 90% of the food is starch. The other 10% are fruits and vegetables. Now, you don't have to measure this. You don't have to hire a dietitian. You just look at your plate, and what you ought to see on your plate is about 90% of the food would be starches: corn, rice, beans, potatoes, sweet potatoes, etc. But this is the diet, this is the way people have eaten for basically all of human existence. 99.99% of people who walked on planet Earth have consumed a starch-based diet. Just rare exceptions. People who lived at the extremes of the environment, such as Inuit Eskimos, or for the last 50 or 100 or 150 years, it has been Americans, Europeans. And now the people from starch, the people from traditional diets have switched over, like those people of Central America or Asia. They've gone more towards the Western diet, which is a fad. It's only been around for, like I say, 50 to 150 years. And now we live on a planet where over half the population has bought into the rich Western diet, and they've abandoned their starch-based diets. We have we've done scientific studies on the results of the program I've run for the last 46 years. And I'd like to talk to you about 3 of these studies. All the rest of the research that's been done on our program is just as positive. But we did a study of 1,703 people who went through the McDougall program. And we did this in a resort setting, and we studied these people over 10 years. And no one was excluded. And what we found is in 7 days, a week, in 7 days, the average weight loss was 3.1 pounds, eating as much as they wanted of food they enjoyed. Average cholesterol dropped 22 points, average decrease in blood pressure. And these are people who had high blood pressure, it was 18 over 11 millimeters of mercury. And nearly 90% of the people who learned this diet at our resort in Santa Rosa, California, nearly 90% of the people got off their medications. That's a 7-day study. And that was one that we did. To date, it has not been in any way criticized. In the publication, you can see down in the right-hand corner, in case you want to look any of the things that I have to tell you up, you want to look it up and see whether I'm telling you the truth, exaggerating, or whatever the situation is. I try and put references to my slides, usually in the right-hand corner. Independent of us, Oregon Health and Science University, the medical school in Portland, studied our patients. And this was a 12-month or 1-year study. And what they found was that on average, over 12 months, at the end of 12 months, people had lost nearly 19 pounds. Well, again, eating an unrestricted diet. These are people who went through my residential program. The average cholesterol drop was 19 milligrams per deciliter. We reduced their insulin levels and had tremendous improvements in their fatigue. And the important thing to understand is that 85% of people were compliant over the 12 months. I mean, you can't get people to take drugs with that level of compliance. Now, why did people follow the program? Well, because the results were so dramatic. And they liked the food. Another independent study was a 12-month study, a 1-year study. It was done, again, totally independent of us. In fact, I didn't even know the study was being done until after it was published. It was done by a couple of doctors in New Zealand. And it was in a community setting. And these people, these doctors, they bragged that this is the best weight loss program of any, including, by the way, the McDougall diet, where we lost an average of 20 pounds over a year-long period of time. Their group lost 25 pounds and maintained it for a year. They got similar drops in cholesterol, reductions in medication, and also compliance that we've gotten over the other studies that I showed you. So that's the results when it comes to chronic illnesses, chronic diseases. The way it works is this. You have to understand, and I think most doctors do, they come to this understanding at some point in their medical career, that the body has a tremendous ability to heal itself. This is an innate type of healing that goes on. We are unaware of it. Unfortunately, some of the things that we do to ourselves cause so much damage that the healing capacity can't catch up. Like, for example, when it comes to cigarette smoking, more damage is done than the body can heal. But what happens when we stop the damage? Then you see the healing ability of the human body. And so it is with the other diseases that I shared with you, is all you have to do is stop the damage. In the case of cigarette smoking and alcohol, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? The alcoholic stops drinking, they stop falling down. The smoker stops smoking and they stop coughing and wheezing. Well, what we have to do is get control of the fork and spoon, which is the cause of most chronic illnesses. And when you stop, what happens is the healing capacity of the body can catch up. Let's talk about climate change for a minute. I learned about the harm to our planet from Al Gore when he gave his presentations on The Inconvenient Truth in 2006. He did also a sequel in 2017. In both of these documentaries, Al Gore focused on fossil fuels primarily. He didn't mention diet at all. Now, there may be reasons for this, and one of the thoughts that I have, it may have been because Al Gore was a Black Angus cattle farmer. And his personal appearance suggested that he did not follow a good diet. But he changed the world. He started people thinking about how important it was to stop the destruction of the planet. And believe me, even though you will hear the rest of the presentation focused on diet, we need to get a hold of the fossil fuel problem. In November of 2006, pretty much the same year, came the report called Livestock's Long Shadow, which is a report from the United Nations, Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO. And what they reported in their 406-page document was that animal agriculture is responsible for 18% of the greenhouse gases. And by comparison, all transportation emits about, less than 14% of the CO2. So the importance of getting animal agriculture under control was identified, but Again, they didn't really tell people how to do it or exactly what to do, but they did make a strong commitment to the fact that we need to fix our food. Otherwise, we're not going to make it. And I have to tell you, up until recently, I believed that fixing the food would be an answer, because I knew that controlling fossil fuels, we were too late. Maybe in 2006, or maybe much earlier than that, like 30 years ago, when this problem was first identified, we could have done it just by stopping fossil fuel. But up until recently, I believed that in addition, changing to a healthy diet would be the solution we needed. I don't believe that anymore. I believe we have to do it, just like we have to control the fossil fuels, but we're far too late. Ladies and gentlemen, the CO2 content in our atmosphere is so high, it would take 1,000 years to handle the problem. So we have to do something else. In addition to changing to renewable energy sources, in addition to most people around the planet becoming vegan. I wrote my first newsletter on this subject in 2006, based upon Al Gore's work and also Livestock's Long Shadow. An inconvenient truth: we are eating our planet to death. And back then, I finally understood the importance of diet in solving the problems on our planet. Robert Goodland came to our resort, to our clinic, to our program in 2013. And Robert Goodland, he was the head advisor, environmental advisor for 23 years at the World Bank. Very respected, very knowledgeable man. And he told us, he said, we're in big trouble, and gave an excellent presentation as to why we had to change our diet to save ourselves. That was in 2013. And Robert Goodland told our audience in 2013 that we had maybe another 3 years to make these changes. Otherwise, we would be past the point of salvation. Eat Lancet Commission, which today is the most respected body when it comes to diet and climate. And what they have told us is that we had, and this was in 1919, we had 12 years to turn things around, or it was too late. But again, they offered no real solutions other than identifying what we had to do in terms of diet. They really didn't, in any practical terms, teach people what they needed to eat or provide recipes. Or, they just have made it, and they still are very, very important organization these days, that we really have to change the diet in terms of planetary health. So it's pretty much agreed upon that animal agriculture is the big culprit. Farm fish, beef, poultry, etc. Produce the bulk of the greenhouse gases. And when it comes to health for the planet as well as people, we have to eat starches. And again, you're not going to be able to supply the needs of the world on broccoli or kale. It just is impractical. It won't happen. You have to do it on starch. This is one of the more encouraging. In fact, if you go to my new website, I produced a website. It's actually supported by the McDougall Foundation. And the address of the website is McDougallFoundation.org. And I'm going to encourage you to go there. You'll find listed 10 studies that tell us that if we change our diets as individuals, and of course, as a whole planet, it would make the same amount of improvement. If we change our diet, 10 studies, we could cut our global warming gas production by about 80%. Lancet Commission, I just talked to you about. The Eat Lancet Commission. They've clearly said that we can get a 50% reduction in global warming gases if we switch to a plant-based diet. So there really is no doubt as far as the benefits to be had if we can make these sensible changes. Again, I'm preaching to you as individuals because we've got a long way to go to change 8 billion people that live on this planet. So how do you get the planet to heal? Well, the planet is always healing. It's always making adjustments to try and survive. It's just like my patients. It has an innate ability to heal itself if we stop the damage. Fossil fuels, as well as changing the diet of the planet. Let's talk about infectious disease for just a moment, COVID-19, in relationship to diet. It was recognized even before this virus came to the United States, when it was still in China, that the people who got very sick, those who were hospitalized, ended up on ventilators and drowned in their lung fluids over about a 2-week period of time, then died. Those were people who had comorbid problems, comorbid diseases, like the diseases that I cure with a dietary change that I just talked to you about: obesity, diabetes, heart disease, kidney disease. It was well recognized, and people were healthy. People who never got the illnesses that are common to Western living, or those who went through a dietary change and brought good health to their body. They got minor disease, or they were asymptomatic. So well recognized in 2019. The Center for Disease Control, CDC, they made a statement about the association between chronic disease, obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease, things that I told you, I've been taking care of for 46 years successfully. And our scientific research, unquestioned, shows that we do. They made the statement that hospitalizations were 6 times higher among people who had these chronic diseases. And the risk of dying was 12 times higher. And they knew this in Europe also. The British Medical Journal told us that we need to eat a diet rich in grains and fruits and vegetables and legumes. They didn't mention meat. In order to not get really sick in case you got infected with the COVID-19 virus. This understanding is worldwide, but again, it's not preached, and there's no education out there to teach people that this is a salvation that they can take advantage of. And they need to, because as you've seen, even though vaccinations have been somewhat effective, we have variants that occur almost daily, to the point now where even the new vaccines are highly questionable as far as their ability to reduce the risk of catching the disease and also of dying of the disease. But if you can maintain good health, you have one of the most powerful factors in terms of surviving if you get the infection. There are all kinds of mechanisms that are involved in, as far as staying healthy when it comes to infections. Unhealthy diets, what they do is they encourage the growth of bacteria in your intestinal tract that destroy the intestinal lining and allow the virus to get into the system. There are all kinds of phytochemicals, phytonutrients that are antiviral. And of course, they're all in plants and not in animal foods. This finding I found particularly interesting because it relates to work I've done for the past 46 years. And that is that people who have high cholesterols in their body, they're the ones that end up sick, hospitalized, on mechanical ventilators, dying. And the mechanism for this association of cholesterol levels, and you realize that cholesterol is only from animal foods. So we're talking about eating an animal food-based diet. The mechanism involved is rather interesting. Between the blood and the lung tissues is a single layer of cells. And there are bridges, rafts, They're called ACE2 openings. And if you have a high cholesterol diet, these rafts, these bridges that allow the virus to go from your blood into your lungs and other tissues are opened up. They're made larger in number and larger in size. And of course, our program lowers cholesterol quite quickly. So, even if you get infected and this is your day where you realize you need to change, I don't think it's too late. We dropped cholesterols an average of 22 points in 7 days, simply through a dietary change. My colleagues, they're excited about this relationship between cholesterol and whether or not you get seriously ill with this COVID virus, because what they find is drugs that lower the cholesterol, they reduce the risk of fatal disease. And my colleagues can relate to drug therapy, not dietary therapy. So we're at a point now in my discussion where hopefully I at least have your attention, or maybe you even believe what I have to say. That way you can make a big impact on our personal health, the health of the planet, and whether or not we are susceptible to all kinds of infections. Right now it's a COVID-19 virus, which has a fatality rate of maybe 2 or 3%. The next virus could be Ebola, which has a mortality rate of 90%, or smallpox, which has a mortality of 45%. So your question is that you have this fund of knowledge. Is there any possibility people are going to change? Well, I think there is, and it's based upon what happened 100 years ago. 100 years ago is the time of World War I. And the battle was in Western Europe, primarily between Germany and Great Britain. And the British set up a blockade in the North Sea, which was to keep the Germans from getting military weapons and food. Well, if you look at the map here, you see that Denmark is right in this area. And so the people in Denmark were greatly affected by this blockade. Now, the Germans, during this time, the 4 years of World War I, they followed the basic 4 food groups. They believed that you need to eat animal foods to stay healthy. But the people in Denmark had a whole different education. And it was due to this man, McDougall Newsletter. He was a scientist at the turn of the 18th to 19th century. He worked with diet. He, as well as his colleagues, understood that protein needs of the human being were so low that you could never reach this level. It would never be of concern. So when he was trying to figure out what to do for the Danish people, he didn't even consider the protein, which of course is what people all talk about today, is the protein. And so what he did is he convinced 3 million people to give up eating animals and instead to eat the animal food. And the pigs died of starvation, but the people, they didn't suffer. They didn't starve. They didn't suffer. However, in Germany, they died, 400,000 of them. So they changed their diet in Denmark during World War I. The publication is in the Journal of American Medical Association of the results of what happened to these Danes over this period of time. And what happened was they experienced better health than they've experienced before or after World War I. They reduced the risk of dying by 34%. And also, if you see the graph here, in the purple line, they reduced their risk of dying of infectious diseases. Never have the Danish people experienced such a benefit by giving up the animals and instead switching to the foods that the animals ate. The soybeans, the grains, the potatoes. During World War I, during that same period of time, we had something known as the Spanish flu, which you have probably heard about. It killed somewhere between 20 and 50 million people worldwide. And during this time, they had public measures such as wearing masks and washing their hands and social distancing. They even tried some vaccination programs during World War I, during the Spanish flu epidemic. Let's take a look at the mortality rates from the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu has been compared on many, many levels to the COVID epidemic that we're going through now. And what you see here is Germany had a very high rate of dying. But look at down at the bottom at the 3 million Danes who went vegetarian. People can change. 3 million Danes did when they were threatened during World War I. We're threatened at a much greater level worldwide. Back then, they had telegraphs. They didn't have radios. The radio was just being introduced. Today, 85% of the people on this planet have cell phones. So the ability to communicate is so much greater than it was back then. We can save ourselves if we decide we want to and are willing to do it. I look at COVID-19 as the meteor that might save the planet. You know, if there was a meteor heading for the planet, I mean, we just had this satellite that was sent up to divert the course of an asteroid that was heading towards our planet. Well, they did that a couple of months ago, and they were successful. But, you know, all efforts were taken just for this test. Can you imagine if it was real? Well, you know, we have something as devastating, more devastating actually, than an asteroid hitting the planet Earth, and that's what's going on in terms of climate change. Hopefully, COVID-19 will wake us up. I don't know. During that period of time, when we had the shutdown across the world, it was about a 2-year period of time when people stopped traveling, they stopped going to events that crowds gathered at, and they pretty much shut down the whole planet. We see in multiple areas around the world that there was a change in the environment, a very positive change. You know, they found a shift in the greenness in China. It came 8.4 days earlier on average. So the planet can and does heal. Italy also showed a study where they showed dramatic improvements in the environment during this period of time. Now, as I mentioned, I'm sure I set you off guard, but I have to talk about this a lot because you know, I'm a scientist and I know the facts, and we're in huge trouble. And it's to the point where we have to separate planet warming from planet pollution, because somewhere or another, for some reason or another, and many, many reasons, we have not stopped polluting the planet. In fact, it's worse. Every year, it's worse. So what are we going to do? Well, Yitao has an answer. And I wouldn't tell you about it if I didn't think it was real important for you to understand. You can go to their website. It's www.mir.org. And what Yitao has, a brilliant man, what he's done is he's put down a real possibility for us. And that is we can cool the planet by reflecting the sun's radiation back into outer space. And how we do this is with mirrors. And how do we make the mirrors? Yitao has worked it out so that we can make them out of aluminum cans and plastic bottles. And we have to cover about 20% of the agricultural land. To do this, we can do it. We must. Like I said, if you read the science, even though we could stop fossil fuel production. I mean, it's possible. There are people who dream about it tomorrow. And we can make everybody become vegan around the world tomorrow. Yeah, right. It's too late. We have to do these things because hopefully human beings will be around more than 1,000 years, which it's going to take to clear up the atmosphere 1,000 years. But in the meantime, my kids and grandkids have to have a planet they can live on. It's too hot. And how do you reduce the temperature of the planet? by making mirrors that reflect the radiation from the sun and cool the planet. You could do this. You listen to this presentation, meer.org. When I finish with you today, after the next two presenters, you should do this as soon as you can, as soon as you can get to your phone or computer, and understand that we do have an option. Will people take it? I don't know. But I'd certainly like to hear there was an option. MEER.
You said MER, the first.
It's MEER. Thank you. MEER.org. Okay. So I made the connection for you for the problems that are most seriously affecting us in our future. Chronic diseases, viruses, and all kinds of new ones coming up there, folks, and climate change. Any questions you might have?
John, can you hear me, John? Ron, let me on.
Yeah.
Yep. Linda
hear you.
here.
Okay, here I am.
You can turn your video on. There you go.
Okay, I have a question for you. First of all, how many other doctors are listening to you? How many have you been able to influence? And are most of them just saying, oh, I don't want to know about it? Or how does that work?
Well, Linda, it has to do with money. Okay, it's a human attraction, money. Now, it's just not in the medical businesses, in every one of your businesses, is that money motivates people to do things. And essentially the messages that I have to share with you have no financial gain.
Maybe
that's the problem.
Are the doctors themselves sick, though? They must be sick, too.
They're sick, too, yeah. My colleagues are, they may be a little healthier than the general population, but not much. You go to Heart Association meetings and they still serve roast beef and cheesecake.
Yeah.
So, and the thing is, Linda, I've been aware of this. I've been practicing this way for 46 years.
Yeah.
I've had two TV shows that went to 95% of the households worldwide. I've talked all over the United States and Europe, and had my own radio shows for many years. And
well, you have you have to start handing out $1 million checks to each person.
Yeah, well, that's not practical either.
I know.
What we're still trying to do is we no longer run a resort-based program. I started the program at St. Helena Hospital and ran it for 16 years.
Yeah.
And we took care of over 3,000 people. And then we ran it at a resort in Santa Rosa, California for 18 years.
Yeah.
And with COVID-19, that opportunity didn't exist anymore. Our resort shut down. Transportation wasn't practical.
Right.
So we had to completely shut down our business. Well, fortunately, there was another way to do this, and it turned out to be a much more successful approach than anything we've ever done before. We now run a telemedicine, internet-based program, and we have clients, we have participants who have the same problems, the obesity, the heart disease, the diabetes, the kidney failure, the cancer, et cetera, who attend this 12-day program, which is over the internet. And it's more successful than, well, you went through it, Linda,
Yeah, I did. It was fantastic. Yeah. And I want all my clients to go through it too, because it does change your life. I mean, you really learn how to take control of your life and not be sick and fat and whatever else is going on with you. So, yeah.
Some of the nice things that I'm sure you appreciated, but I'd like to mention them, is your medical care is delivered over the internet. We do telemedicine, so we have a very competent doctor who takes care of you. I get involved on occasion, at quite a few occasions.
And Dr. Lim.
Dr. Lim does. And then the other thing we do, Dr. Lyle, he tells you why your brain works the way it works. And Jeff Novick, he's the most entertaining dietitian I've ever heard. And
right.
Jack Dixon.
It's fabulous.
But in addition to these talented people, we have so much talent in our program. My attitude is we should have taken over the world a long time ago, but
Yeah.
they're not listening. The other thing nice about the 12-day program run through the internet is the support that you got from
Yeah.
Tiffany or Corey or Stacy,
Oh,
where
yeah.
they come to your home every morning and they offer you a chance to plan your day, check your blood pressure, your blood sugar,
Yeah.
et cetera. So we do every day, all day long. We have support specialists stay with the individuals, and then afterwards we continue the support for a year.
Yeah. No.
So I stay involved in people's lives as well as our support people. In fact, Jeff Novick did one of our presentations just 3 days ago with the group. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
He's
all those
really
tasks.
great. Yeah. I love Jeff too.
And Linda, I want to mention something else about the program.
Yeah.
Is we cut the cost by 2/3. It used to cost people $10,000 to come to the program when we ran it at resort based, and now it's just a fraction of that.
Yeah.
So anyways, we run this 12-day program, and the other thing that we decided to do is, I think you were involved in. Oh yeah, you did one session every Sunday night. Mary and I and Heather are on YouTube Live every Sunday night at 5:00. I mean, tonight we'll be on at 5:00,
Yeah.
and we'll talk to the world.
Yeah.
So we have really good attendance on that. And so all you do is you tune into the McDougall channel, 5 p.m. Pacific time, and you can have a dose of McDougall. That's what you'll get.
It's a fabulous program, and I hope anybody who would like to be healthier, just do it. Just do it. It's amazing.
I lost you, Linda.
I also want to say, how can we get to the doctors? That really concerns me that doctors are not, because sometimes when I go to my doctor, not my doctor because my doctor happens to believe in you, but the other doctor I went to, they tell myself and my clients, no, you can't eat starch, or you've got to eat fish or something like that. And it's hard to, I'm not a doctor, so it's hard to battle the doctors, you see. So we have to have another way to get to the doctors. We have to find a new way.
Linda, our goal, as you all know, is to get people out of the medical business. But we don't want you to have a doctor. And if you follow the program, most of the time, people are out of the business.
Yeah.
So, that's one answer. You should see doctors for what their talents are. You want to improve your appearance, you go to a plastic surgeon who has artistic talents.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a baby, you get somebody who has talent in getting this baby out alive. You don't care what they eat. You don't care if they smoke cigarettes. You don't want them drunk in the operating room. But, you need to see physicians. People who have been through our program don't need to be told what to eat anymore or how to solve their problems. So they shouldn't even be discussing this with their doctors. Their doctors get no education on diet therapy, none. So, and again, this is something I've been aware of for 40 years, is that we receive no education. Well, I got 1 hour of education on nutrition when I was in medical school back over 50 years ago.
And
We just had our 50th year.
They told you to eat fish too, right?
No, it was about how to pick between different infant formulas. It had nothing to do about what you feed your patients. Yeah, that was our only course on nutrition. So, in answer to your question, Linda, we have to find a way to financially reward. Physicians are people.
Yeah.
They respond to what people respond to. I mean, look at what's going on today in the world. Look, it's all money.
Yeah.
It's that trumps moral issues. That trumps moral issues. Every step of the way, Linda.
Yeah.
Just look around you, ladies and gentlemen. So you got to find out a way for doctors to make money doing the right thing. Mm-hmm. So how do you do that? Well, you practice capitated medicine, which is maybe coming back into vogue, where the doctor gets a certain amount of money and has to use that money to take care of a group of people, say 1,000 patients or 500 patients. And what you get to keep what's left over.
Yeah.
So initially with the doctors, and we tried this about 30 years ago, under a capitated system, initially what the doctors did is they just sent you home early from the hospital to save money and cut back on the drugs they gave you or gave you generic drugs. but they did nothing about what really would make them a ton of money. You can imagine if you had this group of people and you had them eat the way that you and I eat, they'd make millions of dollars. They didn't make as much as a heart surgeon overnight.
Yeah.
So, you have to put the financial rewards in a way that people would understand it. You're not going to change human beings.
Yeah. How about we start a program where you're showing doctors how they can do that? I mean, how they can make the money and survive on their own and not be in a hospital or, doing on their own.
Yeah.
Like
Well, it's possible. We take medical residents and medical students every program. So
Okay.
we educate them. We have for the last probably 20 years. My foundation, which is, the McDougall Foundation, is a 501c3.
Yeah.
The one that developed this website that you all ought to go to. I ask you to write down MEER, MEER, two E's, MEER.org, not .com, but .org.
Okay.
And I'd like you to write down McDougallFoundation.org.
Yeah.
And, you want to have any follow-up from the presentation I gave you, and it will really make a difference. You can go to our regular website if you're interested in personal health, which is drmcdougall.com. But, if you're interested in planetary issues, we put together a website which needs far more attendance than it's getting. But it's getting on. It's getting some recognition.
Dr. McDougall. Yeah, Dr. McDougall, you had a question. There's a couple questions here. This is from Nancy. Do your programs accept Medicare?
No.
No. Got it. And then also we had a question. What's the link to your course?
Say again, the link to my course?
Yes. What's the link to your course? Now that you're online as opposed to in person.
Well, it's you sign up for the 12-day program at drmcdougall.com. And then, it's all private. We take a group of people and we run them through a 12-day program. There's no public link to it. But the Sunday night thing that we do every Sunday night, 5 o'clock Pacific time, the Sunday night thing is you just go to YouTube and you look up McDougall channel, or if you're signed up on our mailing list, you look up, you go to McDougall channel, and we do a live presentation live every, Linda's been on every Sunday night from 5 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as courses, I'm teaching a course. I just taught a course that was real successful. In fact, we got sold out immediately, so we had to run it again. And it's on aging and also avoiding dementia. Well, I won't give that again until next year. But right now, I'm in the process. It starts the first week of November, in giving a course, a four-day course, 4 hours each day, and it's about human nutrition. I'll be talking for each day. I'll be talking about protein one day, fats another day, carbohydrates another day, and vitamins and minerals another day. So 4-hour lectures. They're question and answer live. This, like I say, starts next month in November. And you just go again to the website to sign up for that. And yes, we do charge for it, but compared to what?
Not that much.
We had also another question, and actually this came in a bit earlier, but I'd like to ask it as well. We had a gentleman ask, how do we transition in roughly 7 billion people, or 7 billion meat, dairy, and fish eaters in the world to a plant-based diet? In other words, how can we produce enough plant foods to feed all of these people, and can we entice these people to really change what they eat?
Well, hopefully we do it by our choice. In other words, people would become aware, and then they would choose the kind of diet that I recommend. And again, you have to make it a starch-based diet. You can't grow enough nuts and seeds to feed the world's population. You can't get enough calories out of kale or broccoli or these other nutrient-dense vegetables to feed even a small group of people. The whole planet would starve to death. But you could feed the world easily overnight on starches. I mean, just stop feeding the rice and the corn and the soybeans to your pigs and cows.
Exactly.
If you want to make food available, you probably make 10 times as much food available to human beings as being made available now. I'm just guessing that figure. But so that's the wise way to do it, so that we don't suffer. We just change. But there's another way that's going to be done, and that's because of food scarcity. We're on the verge of food scarcity. I mean, every time you turn on the news, we're talking about droughts and starving, millions and millions of people starving right now. I realize it hasn't hit your home in New York or Los Angeles, but ladies and gentlemen, this is just around the corner. So people are going to change to a vegan diet, whether they like it or not, for a while, and then they won't have any food. So that's what we're looking at, I hope the other speakers gave you a much more optimistic point of view of what's going on. But, I don't know. You want me to tell you a lie? That seems to be a pretty common thing these days.
It's about education and getting the awareness out there.
How do you get people to change individually? Our program is free. It's free on the website. There's a whole 12-day program that we've given away for the last 35 years. So the people who don't have the time or the money, you can go to www.drmcdougall.com and you can get a free 12-day program. No gimmicks, menus, recipes, instructions, everything you want. Or you can go to a used bookstore and buy, one of my 13 national best-selling books for 50 cents. Or actually, we're giving away 6 of the 13 books I own the rights to, and we're giving them away. So, I mean, it's free, but it's hard to learn, from a book. You need an experience, and that experience is the 12-day live-in program, telemedicine, telehealth program that we run. So, that's the ultimate experience. And this is the best. We get better results, better weight losses, better compliance, better drops in cholesterol, better reductions in medication than I ever got at St. Helena Hospital, which I was at for 16 years, one of the most respected hospitals in the country, or better results than we got at our resort program in Santa Rosa, which I ran for 18 years. We get better statistics and happier people. And I want to tell you, our staff will never go back to a live-in program. They just love the interaction that you have through the internet. It's, just look at what we're doing right now. We have a communication opportunity that we don't even have in person. The intimacy is different, but it's real. And to me, it's the only way that I'm going to communicate. I don't do any live talks anymore. I'm happy to do internet presentations for obvious reasons. But you're not getting me on an airplane again. Huh?
You did a lot for me over the years. And
there was a time when I used to drive over and jump up on stage and do a dance, but I don't do that anymore.
But you were funny though, because you wanted to be free for people. So you'd always tell me, Linda, if you're charging, I'm not coming. So that's how generous you were with people. Now, what I didn't tell you is I had to pay for the venue, but I thought you were so important to be there, and I did that. So, but anyway, and also, remember the guy, Andrew Spudfit Taylor?
Right, I think
you should talk about him, because I think that's funny.
Well, I think you should go to his website. It's spudfit.com.
Okay, yeah.
Andrew Taylor lost about 120 pounds. He found out about my work and the complete nutrition you get from a potato. Anyway, because he couldn't do anything else for psychological reasons, or the way things were set up in his life, he could not follow even a vegetarian diet. So he heard that you could live on potatoes alone very successfully. Potatoes give you everything except for B12, which is if you eat dirty potatoes, you'll get B12. Anyway, he 120 pounds. Improved his psychological well-being. Andrew Taylor
over a year, right?
Yeah, it took him a year to lose it. Yeah, but he still. That was like 10 years ago or more. He still follows the program.
Yeah, I had him as a speaker here, but he told us that you went on the Dr. Oz or Dr.
No, it was a doctor show. I was on it with him.
Doctor show, yeah, and. He said, I won't go on there unless Dr. McDougall comes with me.
Which I did.
That was so nice.
By internet. I wasn't, listen, my days of traveling are over. I spent 15 years promoting books around the country, on TV shows, radio shows, some of the biggest shows in the country. I spent my time. 2 weeks out of the month, I was gone from my family.
Yeah.
And I don't do that anymore. I'm sorry, folks. I've reached the ripe old age of 75, and I get to do things like I want to do them from now on.
Well, we don't care where you're doing it. You keep doing it. That's all. And I think it's wonderful that you are available to us like you are, and that you are able to come and talk whenever we want you to, because this is the way we can educate the world. This is going to go out on Plant-Based Network. This is going to go out on my website. This is going to go out on YouTube and Facebook and everything. Right. So everybody, in fact, we're going to cut it up in pieces. So we'll have the Dr. McDougall one, we'll have the Openlander one, we'll have the Glenn Mercer one, and Dr. Rao one. Yeah.
Well, Linda, you've been a great mediator and communicator, and have from your heart, you've spread the message.
Yeah. Oh, well, you saved my life. You kind of love people who save your life. If
I wouldn't have been in that place at that time, somebody else would have helped you out.
Dr. McDougall.
Gotta be you.
Dr. McDougall, this is a question from me, actually. Being Asian, I'm a Filipino from Hawaii. I have a number of people that will tell me I need to stop eating rice because of diabetes. Hey, this is bad for my blood sugar level, and that rice is just horrible for you, especially, if I'm eating white rice as opposed to brown rice, then I'm really killing myself, and so on. What is your take on eating rice, period?
It shows you how ignorant people are. Most people are old enough to remember a time when there were no overweight people in China. They had no breast or prostate cancer in Japan just after World War II. You remember the time when the Filipino, your grandma and grandpa, remember a time in the Philippines when, there was no heart disease. I actually learned, most of what I learned as a sugar plantation doctor in Hawaii. For 3 years, I took care of sugar plantation workers, 5,000 of them, who are Chinese, Koreans, Japanese, and Filipinos. And my Filipino patients were probably my best education. And what I noticed was my first generation, you remember probably somebody your grandma's age or grandpa's age, they never had heart trouble or diabetes or breast cancer, never were overweight. They were working hard into their 80s and 90s. And as the kids learned the Western diet, and the grandkids, they got fat and sick, just like Americans. In Hawaii now, the Filipino has the highest rate of gout of any ethnic group. The Filipino is in big trouble in Hawaii and California. So I'll tell you, let me tell you something, Ronnie, that I've never told on a public media like this. And it was about one of my experiences with Filipinos. I was a general practitioner. I caught 100 babies. I, sewed people up. For 3 years, I took care of these 5,000 people. And what I noticed coming into my office was an interesting, unique family unit. Filipino. Into my office at least a couple times a week came an older gentleman in his 60s, 70s, or sometimes their 80s. He'd walk into the office with 3 little kids and a 20-year-old wife. Okay. And I thought, whoa, this is pretty amazing. Or, my first thought was the neighbor was helping out. But what I found out was these gentlemen were actually true fathers of these children. What people were doing then, I have no doubt that they're still doing it, is if you worked as a Filipino on a sugar plantation, you were wealthy. You collected a great pension and you had a ton of money relative to the average population in the Philippines. And what these gentlemen would do is they'd work for their business life or professional life on the sugar plantation, and then they retire and they would go to the Philippines and they'd buy a bride and they'd bring her back and they would have a family together, and they would, not only were they capable of doing the duty, of fathering children in their 70s, which I can attest to, you can do that. But they expected to see these kids grow up They expected to see them graduate from high school, go to college, get married. You know, that was the lesson I got when I was in my mid-20s. And I remember saying to myself, boy, when I get to be 70, and I'm 70 now, 75 actually. When I get to be 70, I'd rather be doing that than sitting in a wheelchair. And believe me, except for the fact that I have this wonderful wife that I've been with for 50 plus years. I might have been headed to the Philippines. Who knows?
Dr. McDougall, you have a question, or not a question, a comment here from Clarita. She says, I wanted to say that my daughter and I met Dr. McDougall and his wife many years ago. My daughter and I were singing in Spanish in Clear Lake. She was 13 or 14. She went up to them and found out that he was the same person on his mother's favorite book in her kitchen. So it's an honor to attend today. See you. So that was a comment. And then we had another comment. So this is the gentleman who asked about transitioning and helping people to transition and how to, I guess, not having enough food. So he says, we cannot simply feed people the same food we are growing for animals, as he suggested. So once again, that feed such as feed corn is not edible for humans or by humans. So how do we really get people to transition?
Well, I don't know that that's the case. I mean, if there was nothing else available but feed corn, you'd eat it. There's nothing that I'm aware of with feed corn, except for it probably doesn't taste very good, at least to people. So I don't know that what he's saying is true, but regardless, you could grow sweet corn. You don't have to grow feed corn. Anyway, it doesn't sound like a very well thought out question. Hey, listen, I've got 2 grandkids that need my attention here, so I'd better let you get on to your next speaker.
Okay.
All right. It was fun. Thanks for inviting me. I hope you have. I know who's coming up, and you've got some really, really important guests to listen to.
Yes.
And I know who you listened to, and you really had a good start for the presentation. I hope I added to it in a positive way.
Yes.
Okay. See you guys.
Thank you so much, Dr. John.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.